Let's do the Sentry real quick since you...
Yeah, you told me this one was
very important.
Man, I want to know.
Fuck it, you want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
Look at how this guy describes Sentry. Go ahead, read that top line. Sentry origin.
Wait, what? This is Helverine.
Are we not looking at the top?
Oh. Sentry origin.
Schizophrenic is what that says. Schizophrenic is what that says. If you don't know, most powerful Omega level character came into existence by mistake.
That's a you gotta see that video. There's no way.
No, I'm going with the rise and the fall.
That's ass.
One of the biggest complaints that people have with Superman is that he's an overpowered Boy Scout. And while many competitors have made their own knockoffs to explore that kind, Marvel's attempt was a bit more interesting. The law of equivalent exchange states that in order to obtain, something of equal value must be lost. And in the case of the Sentry, his dark side makes sure to commit as much death and destruction as his alter ego prevents. But when you have the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, is it worth saving the planet if those actions could just as easily lead to its entire annihilation?
Alright, that automatically got me confused. The guy, first of all, he's an Omega level threat. I'm assuming that means
I heard
damn near multiversal. But did you hear that it was that he needs to kill as much as he saves? A karmic person.
Yeah, he needs to kill as much as he saves. Yes.
Yeah, that one.
So he has to turn into the evil guy.
That's wild.
In order to keep everything that he knows and loves protected from his own monstrous power, the Sentry sealed himself away from not just the Marvel Universe, but also from the minds and memory of his real-world readers and creators, until one day, his original comics were discovered in the back of a dark Marvel office, and then suddenly, his presence and darkness were unleashed upon the universe once again. This is legitimately one of the most fascinating stories in all of comic history, as Marvel took the idea of forgotten memories and ran with it, going so far as to straight up lie to the media about their own history, and elevating the simple idea of what if Marvel had their own Superman into a thought-provoking story of mental health, addiction, and self-identity.
Mental health, addiction, and self-identity. Let's go. That's all I need to hear. No shit.
The Sentry's initial 5-issue limited series ran from July to October of 2000.
5-issue limited
with
series.
Each issue written by Paul Jenkins, with art by Jay Lee and Jose Villarrubia. It begins with a sudden flash of lightning, startling and waking up the middle-aged and mild-mannered Robert Reynolds. As Robert wakes up, he immediately realizes that something is wrong, walks downstairs and grabs a book with a mysterious formula inside it. Here, we learn this isn't just an ordinary man, as once he takes the serum, Robert transforms into the Sentry. Through flashbacks, it's explained that Sentry was the most powerful hero in the Marvel Universe, and frequently fought alongside the Avengers, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four. This is all demonstrated visually by depictions of the Sentry in different art styles from comic history, from the classic 1960s Jack Kirby look, to mirroring Frank Miller's Batman in The Dark Knight Returns, to the hyper-stylized pocket and pouches designs of the 1990s. As Robert processes these memories, he witnesses a terrifying vision of his longtime foe, the Void. Shaken, Reynolds knows what he must do: solve the mystery behind his disappearance and unite his fellow heroes to prevent the Void from destroying the world.
He even got memory loss? He gets memory loss, regains the memories, and goes out to figure out who the Void is and why he's hiding from him.
But he ain't my character, But he ain't my character,
travels to the Baxter Building, where we learn that he and Reed Richards were once best friends.
At least not
Reed,
yet.
not recognizing the mysterious figure, urges Robert to leave. Before he does, though, Sentry tells Mr. Fantastic to look for the unicorn. And later, Reed notices a unicorn ornament in his living room, causing him to remember Bob's wedding, where he was his best man. Reed also finds a tape containing a pre-recorded message from himself, alerting him that if this is being played, it means that the Sentry has returned and that the Void will soon follow. Whilst the Fantastic Four prepare for what comes next, we see Robert encounter several other heroes, including the Hulk, the X-Men, and Spider-Man. One by one, each character begins to remember the Sentry and their battles together. When Robert meets Iron Man,
this is just too cool to be not its own movie. He's a character.
For me.
He's a character who, across the Marvel Universe and timeline existed and went along and fought along every superhero, and then they essentially all got their minds wiped from him, so they're protected from him. So
from the Void?
Yeah, from the Void. So they all know that he has the Void. They don't all know that he has the Void. Everybody's mind gets erased. So he walks over to Reed Richards and says, "Look for a unicorn, bud. You'll get what you need there." And then Reed Richards happens to have a videotape under that unicorn saying, "The Void's coming. He's woken up. We're all fucked."
So, well, yeah, so what was the origin? He stems himself with...
There wasn't a real origin yet, just set up for how powerful the character is.
No, he said something about a syringe, the serum.
Yeah, it was a random...
a serum?
Random serum in a book that he happened to have that he felt like he needed to drink once he started gaining his memories back. So they all knew him, they all fought alongside of him, and they all forgot him, but they forgot him because if they don't forget him, the Void if they still remember him and then he remembers them, the Void pops up and kills everybody.
So he's the character that they're gonna use that Doctor Strange spell from the Spider-Man movie on. You're wiped. No more Void.
Well, they can't do that. Again, it's the Thunderbolts.
They could do that later, though.
I don't even think they can. But this seems way too cool, especially since it requires no setup in the Marvel Universe.
They're giving
0%.
They're giving it to the Thunderbolts.
They're giving it to the Thunderbolts. That is so ass. And they're just gonna defeat him.
Look, Doctor Strange is right there.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Where they collectively decided to erase the world's memory of the Sentry. Believing that his closest friends betrayed him, Robert heads to his old base of operations, the Watchtower. However, when attempting to access his onboard computer, he finds that he's been locked out by none other than Reed Richards. Sentry deduces that Reed was the one who orchestrated the conspiracy to erase his memories, becoming overwhelmed with rage that causes thunderstorms in the night sky. And it's through these thunderstorms that the Void can be seen as chaos begins to break out across the city. Robert races to the Statue of Liberty, where he's met by all the other heroes he's encountered previously, including Mr. Fantastic. As they all prepare to battle the Void, Robert confronts Reed over his betrayal, before Doctor Strange appears and reveals a memory that neither man could recall. It's explained that the Void...
The Sentry...
They're about to explain it, by the way.
He's probably going to be in the Fantastic Four, then.
He could be, but what would be the point?
Because they're in the 60s and they're born in the 60s.
No, you can whip this guy out at any moment in the MCU.
Yeah, they could introduce...
Because he's just always been there, they just erased him.
Yeah, they could introduce him not in the Thunderbolts, because he's already going to be the Void at that point. But they could introduce the Sentry at the Fantastic Four.
I don't know if the Fantastic Four is connected to the MCU.
But then again, Sentry can just one-shot Galactus.
Because the Baxter Building doesn't exist in the MCU.
I don't know what the Baxter Building is.
The building they live in. The Fantastic Four
That's what it's called?
Yeah.
So it's not the Fantastic Tower?
It doesn't exist in... No, it's not the Fantastic Tower. You fucking asshole.
An alternate persona of the Sentry, a manifestation of all of his trauma and addiction, and fearing that he could no longer contain his light and dark elements, Robert instructed his fellow heroes to wipe his memory and make the entire world forget his existence in order to prevent the Void from ever re-emerging. We see that Reed, torn over the loss of his closest friend, was the one who built a machine that did this, and realizing this is the way that they can defeat the Void, Robert and Reed rush back to the Watchtower and activate the machine. In their final moments together, Sentry apologizes for ever coming back, as Mr. Fantastic tells his former best friend that he was the best man he ever knew, and the real tragedy wasn't his return, but the fact the world had to lose the Sentry again. The two men say goodbye, and the comic suddenly fades to black. The next thing we see is the wrecked streets of New York City, accompanied by a news bulletin stating that a hurricane had rampaged through the streets the previous night. Inside of a car, we see Robert and his wife Linda Reynolds listening to the report before pulling over outside a fast food restaurant. Robert enters and is met by a familiar face, his former sidekick Billy, aka Scout. Much like the other
he's got a
heroes from earlier,
sidekick?
though, Billy doesn't recognize the Sentry at all, and
Weird.
instead asks to take his order, causing Robert to smile, leaving the fate of the Sentry and the entire world uncertain.
The Sentry very much reads like a one-off alternate universe comic, but that wasn't necessarily the intent. Although it was generally well liked, the book's respectable 20th place
I will be going to a different video. Oh, here we go. Never mind.
The initial stage of the story goes back to March 19.
What the f-
Meth addict became
A meth addict became a superhero?
It means a lot. Thank
See,
you.
that's a little different than what they said.
How a meth addict became a superhero.
Okay, this
the
was
initial stage
a
of the
better,
story goes back to March 1947.
video to pick.
Canada's Department K, which was responsible for reviving the original Weapon X program, and United States Operation Rebirth, where Captain America came into being, merged their resources to become Project Sentry. It started as a mission to not only recreate the super soldier serum, but also amplify its powers.
Recreate the
100,000
super
times.
soldier
However,
serum?
due to
Yep.
interference from Cold War politics, the project had been fragmented about 1,000-fold into discrete sub-projects, with lab work transferred to private contractors in 30 years' time. At this point, the project's overall administration was practically non-existent. It was then unknown where all of its resources ended up. One such work had reached the hands of an unnamed professor who had managed to perfect the formula of the Golden Sentry Serum. Now, after almost 10 years, Robert Reynolds, a high school student who is a meth addict and who also loves his dog a lot, snuck into the laboratory of this professor, where he found and consumed the Golden Sentry Serum. This gave
A fucking crack addict broke into a random professor's. They gave it to a random professor, cracked the code. He left it out on a table in his fucking in his laboratory. A crack addict broke in and drank the serum just because. Fuck it, I guess. Any
Dude,
chemical
and it was
will do the
supposed to
job.
be a super soldier serum.
Yeah, it's a facility where they do the super soldier serum, Weapon X, and Canada.
Holy shit, and they gave him this power?
Robert Reynolds the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. He had a sudden glow, and his muscles expanded. It resulted in the deaths of his partner and the lab's guards. He then requested that the professor create more serum for him. Later on, Project Sentry tried to persuade Reynolds to allow them to test the extent of his powers at their facility, but they were unable to keep him there for long. He wanted to use his powers for the greater good of all, and so, the Sentry, the Golden Guardian of Good, made his first appearance in front of the world that had almost forgotten about superhuman Samaritans. Reynolds stitched together a costume and made it his debut as the heroic Sentry after defeating the school bullies who had mistreated him. Sentry soon became a hero whom society had accepted as one of their own. It might come as a surprise, but he had also found allies in Iron Man, the Hulk, Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man,
this stuff
and
we already
Professor
know.
X.
Yeah.
Sentry was among the few superheroes operating in the years leading up to the formation of the Fantastic Four. His importance only grew as the new wave of heroes was gaining fame. In fact, after immediately deducing Spider-Man's secret identity, he became a role model for the young hero.
So what's the
Sentry also
timeline
fought
here?
alongside
When
the
did they do it?
Fantastic Four.
Way before the Fantastic Four.
No, way before Captain America. Like what?
Way before the
timeline?
Fantastic Four.
1800s.
The Captain America was obviously not before Captain
it was
America,
after
dumbass.
Captain America.
Someone's not paying attention to the lore.
The most extraordinary superpowers, the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. This apparently grants him the power equivalent to that of stars going nova. Clearly, it stands as a tribute to Superman's solar-based power set. It is also speculated that Sentry can channel the sun's power or any other light source to use it as a weapon. It practically means energy projection. It is rather common for superheroes who can control energy to do so. But what puts Sentry on a higher level than the rest is the intensity of his energy blast. They have been revealed to be capable of burning the Hulk's skin and even destroying entire towns. He can also manipulate the light surrounding him to blind his opponents. Indeed, the Sentry
just
can
has
be considered
full
as
light
Marvel's own
manipulation.
twisted version of DC's Superman. Well, despite that, Sentry is definitely one of Marvel's most powerful superheroes. Just take a good look at his figure. He has the jacked body that every bodybuilder and weightlifter dreams of achieving.
The Angel of Death, the origin story of the Void, had a significant shift in the Dark Avengers comic book series of 2009, redefining the character's story with an unexpected unexpected historical tie. His origins seem to be all over the place. Some comics suggest that he was the manifestation of the dark side of the Sentry. Some suggest that the Void already existed, and that Robert just happened to be a physical entity that the Void used to manifest itself.
No, I just think
how viruses cling to human bodies in order to survive. In contrast
But yeah,
to
pause
past
it.
illustrations, this
How does a super soldier serum
give him a god inside of him? I don't know. How does a spider bite give you a spider god? Your spider god's avatar. Even though it's a genetically altered spider.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
ask that same question.
I wouldn't be that retarded. I would just assume he's whacked out. That would be my answer.
No, but the thing about the Sentry is...
I know, I'd stick to the script. Stick to the 5-issue script and not the dumbass.
Just don't think about
God
it. Turn
shit.
off your brain type shit.
No, yeah, it's way cooler to think that he's fucking
because
a psycho.
It's a serum.
I know. Shut up. Watch video.
discovery provided the interesting idea that the Void's origins went all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Pause it
This
again.
concept positioned the
Ancient Egypt.
This makes me feel better about anything that we write, because that sounds a little... that sounds a little retarded.
Yeah, I ain't about that. It's all about the human aspect, not the random god impregnated you with powers that were not yours.
No, humans made the serum.
I know, it's fucking dumb.
I'm confused a little. You can keep
The
going.
Void as a timeless force, echoing its role as an embodiment of darkness and chaos throughout various eras. Although the Void's exact origins are not exactly known, his first known actions can be dated to around 1600 BCE, when Moses pleaded with God to mark every Hebrew doorstep with the blood of a
They
lamb
attached
to
it to
shield-
Jesus Christ, or just the Old Testament. But
And at least the Void isn't like a new concept when he was created.
nope. They attached this bitch to Moses. Let's see. Weaknesses: magic. Void can be sealed with powerful magic. Oh yeah, we know that. By
well as
Doctor
the
Strange, Chi, the Void was proven to be vulnerable to spiritual energy such as Chi, so Quan Chi can get his hands on his ass. And
The Void being technically...
domination of darkness. The
dark
Void being technically a dark entity. Any deity with control over other beings of darkness can bend his will. Oh, so maybe like Khonshu, but other people like Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, Cloak and Dagger, anybody
Other
with
people with the darkness that makes sense,
okay.
at least to the most.
Although, wouldn't it make more sense for him to bend them? To
Well, no,
his will?
I'm assuming it's a back and forth.